Today I'm actually not going to preach for you a new sermon. I'm actually going to give you sort of a rerun. It's not really a rerun. It's kind of a part rerun. It's more like one of those episodes of TV where it's got some new content, but then they keep flashing back to old scenes. You know those shows? You always feel like you kind of got ripped off for watching it. That's what you get today. So it's kind of like that. A lot of sprinkled in flashbacks. Much of this message is actually comes from the very first message I ever preached on a Sunday morning for Grassroots Church. Just out of curiosity, how many of you were actually there for that very first Sunday morning? It was Sunday, July 13th, 2014. Were you there? It was in a home. There are just a few of us here. Actually, some more people that were behind the scenes I know that were here. So I just want to say thank you to the people that actually were there and that are still here with us. How awesome is it that you've gone on this journey with us as Grassroots Church? So today I want to preach this old message, or partly an old message, because I think that though the message itself is old, the content is still fresh for us. It's still relevant. So I preached this first message in order to kind of cast this vision for what we envision Grassroots Church to be. And now, nearly 5 years later almost, 2 houses, a gym, a dance studio, and an old sanctuary reconverted back into a sanctuary later, now I believe we can all use kind of a little refresher course about why we are here. So why did you come to church this morning? Now I hope that you came to church, you came to Grassroots Church in order to stop coming to church, right? You came to church to stop coming to church. And that right there is one of the main reasons that we started this church. That's actually my dream for this church. It's actually my dream for you that you stop just going to church. Now this message intro video that we just watched about dreams, we've shown that video in here several times before, mainly because it's one of my favorite videos it's out there. In fact, the very first time that I ever watched this video, this church, Grassroots Church, was on my mind. You were not yet born, but you were on my mind. You were in my heart. You were this vision that was overwhelming to me, that when I actually watched this video about dreams, I felt like God was speaking directly to me through this video. I was actually overwhelmed to the point of tears watching this video. I was literally like crying in my office as I was watching this video, staring at my computer screen, choking down the lump in your throat. You know that lump that you get sometimes you try, guys especially, we have to choke that back because we don't want to admit to anybody that we ever cry about anything. So I was hoping that nobody would walk by my office door and peer in and see me crying looking at the computer screen. The Grassroots Church at that point was just a vision, was just a dream in my heart. And it was this idea of a movement of everyday people on mission every day. That was my dream. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day people will no longer just go to church. That one day, I have a dream that one day people won't even talk about in that language about going to church anymore. When they drive by church buildings and they see that building over there with the steeple, they won't even know what to call that building anymore. They used to call those things churches, but now they struggle for the right words to say to describe this building over here. I have a dream that people no longer will schedule like official church events and official church activities into their schedules. I even have a dream that people will stop giving money to the church. Now, I bet you didn't expect to hear that message in church ever, right? But let's be honest here, because don't you ever just get tired of just going to church? This is a safe place, all right? You can be honest. You can be honest. If you can't be honest in church, where can you be honest? So don't you ever get tired of going to church? Don't you ever get tired of waking up on a Sunday morning and you could be sleeping in, but you're going to get up and you're going to go to church for what? To listen to a message that you could just as easily hear on a podcast. But on a podcast, they have that great feature where you can make it go like 1.5 or 2 times faster, so you can listen to it much faster, and you can pause and delete and whatever, skip over it. And then there's also, you can listen to a few songs on Sunday mornings, but you could just turn on the radio and listen to the same music that we sing here. Are you ever tired of the church asking you for your hard-earned money and Don't you get tired of all these official church events that the church seems to keep harassing you to attend? Me too. I actually have this dream where that would stop happening. And we would stop just going to church. Now, I have not gone crazy, but I do have this dream that one day people will no longer go to church, because I believe that what we normally think of as church is not what God had in mind. It's much, much too small. So don't you think that God, our big God, has a much bigger plan than just to get people to go to church on Sundays? Don't you think that he wants us to do more, that his dream for us is to do more than just to come to a building and to sit for an hour on a Sunday? I mean, there are 24 hours in a day, there's 168 hours in a week, but the best God can do for us is just to dream up this 1 hour activity where we come and we sit and we sing and we listen to a message and we give money and we drink coffee and eat donuts and then we go home. The only thing I think sometimes that makes us look different than our non-church friends, our non-Christian friends and family, is that we just go to church once a week. And that's if we're like rock star churchgoers, if we're going once a week. We're like awesome Christians if we're going once a week, right? Because most churchgoers, most Christians don't do that, don't go that often. So do we really think that going to church is all that God has in mind for his followers? I mean, I think that would be a really lame, pathetic excuse for God's dream for his church. So what is God's dream for his church? See, God has a dream that has been unfolding since the very beginning of time. So we read about God's dream in the very first book of the Bible, in the book of Genesis, where the writer of Genesis tells us that God's dream started to become a reality when he brought this world into existence. And what happened was he created the cosmos. The cosmos was his design. He wants it to be here. He formed it, and he breathed into the dust of the earth the breath of life. And he gave life to humanity. Humanity, the pinnacle of his creation, the masterpiece of his design. Humanity is the only part of all creation that reflects the image of the divine. But then God's dream begins to look more like a nightmare when we, the reflection of his divine glory, we, his beloved children, we, his image bearers, his prized creation, in all of creation, we break his design. We sin against God. We rebel against his beautiful ways. We fracture the cosmos. So through our sins, we have filled the earth with pain and with suffering and even with death itself. And when we look around now, it's easy for us to look around at our world and see what a nightmare it has become. But God's dream for our world is not so easily thwarted. God does not give up on his dream for a beautiful creation at the first sign of frustration. No, God's dream, it continues. God's vision for humanity living in a loving relationship, intimate relationship with him, it continues. God's dream for all the world to be this perfect reflection of God's goodness, with humanity as the central masterpiece, man made in God's image. That dream for us continues. And out of this broken world, God's dream of a beautiful new world, a new creation, will still arise. See, just as the Bible starts with the story of creation, the Bible also ends with the story of new creation. And in the final book of the Bible, God actually lets us inside his head a bit as we see how his dream for this world is going to be fulfilled. He has revealed it to us in a book that uses that very name, the Revelation. God's revelation to us, he reveals how his dream for the world is going to pan out. So throughout the book of Revelation, John, the writer of the book, he paints this picture for us of our broken world. And it's a world of war and suffering and pain. But then at the end of the book, in chapter 21, we get this beautiful picture that John paints for us, that God reveals to him. It's the climax of God's dream for us. And he reveals to us what will happen in the end. So God's dream is for this broken earth, this broken place, this place of suffering and pain and heartache and loneliness and sin and betrayal and grief, this place will be redeemed. All that bad stuff will be reclaimed and forced to become something new. All that brokenness will be mended together into this beautiful mosaic. So even those who have died will be resurrected to new life. The entire cosmos will be transformed. Everything, all of creation, will be made new. So another way to put it, as the book of Revelation describes, is that one day Christ will return and a marriage will actually take place. A wedding, the wedding of heaven and earth. This place, this earth, will be married with heaven. As Christ returns, the two shall become one. It says in Revelation chapter 21, verse 1, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared, and the sea was also gone. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, 'Look, God's home is now among his people. He will live with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. All these things are gone forever.' And the one sitting on the throne said, 'Look, I am making everything new.'" So this is God's amazing dream for this earth. New creation, the wedding of heaven and earth. God's home will be among his people, and death and sorrow and crying and pain will be over. Redemption and resurrection is God's dream. And it just seems so fitting to me that this chapter of Revelation, these last chapters in the entire Bible that encapsulate God's dream for us, this future for us that is, of course, yet to be fulfilled, the last chapters of the Bible talk about that yet future day, because after these very last chapters of God's storybook, then the Bible just ends, leaving the future yet to be, leaving this promise or this dream seemingly in our hands, in the hands of God's people, in the hands of God's church. And it's as if the story of the Bible is saying, this is God's amazing dream, and this is how it's all going to end. So now, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to be a part of us getting there? And so, see, I believe identifying the church as a building or as a worship service is much, much too small for God's definition of church. And I believe that giving money to an institution is much, much too small of a way to think about generosity and about giving and about God's vision for the church being generous. And to be honest, I don't even understand the concept of like official church events anymore. That's a construct. We've created that in America. This I don't think God's vision for the church understands that sort of terminology. I think God has a bigger and better vision for the church than just the stuff that we go to. See, I have this dream that people would stop just going to church and start being the church everywhere we go. Everywhere we go. So church is not a place or an event that you go to. It is who you are as followers of Jesus. So I have a dream that people will no longer schedule these official church events into their calendar, because every single event in their calendar already, business, social, kids, activities, whatever, every single event in the calendar, every single thing that you do is a church event. It's a church event. And to be Grassroots Church, then you have to understand that reality. That every single thing that you do, every single event that you attend, it's a Grassroots Church event. Now, when I say that, I want to clarify that because I think there can sometimes be confusion. And when I say it's a church event, I don't mean that you're like promoting Grassroots Church at that event. What I mean is that you are God's church. You are Grassroots Church. You represent God's people wherever you go and whatever you do. You represent Jesus everywhere you go and everything that you say and everything that you do. That's what it means to be the church. You know, most people don't read the Bible, right? That's not a shock, okay? Most people that you see in life, most people that you know, most of your friends, most of your family, they don't read the Bible regularly. It's been said that, maybe it was Billy Graham, I think, that said it, was that you may be the only Bible that anyone ever reads. You may be the only Bible that anyone ever reads. That's what I mean when I say that every event in your schedule is a church event. I know we talk about bringing your friends to church here a lot. We talk about that, and that's important, that we bring people here. That's a great idea, but really more than anything else, Grassroots Church is supposed to be bringing the church to your friends. So first and foremost, before you identify as anything else, you are the church. Before you're a mom, you're the church. Before you're a teacher or a nurse or a cop, you're the church. Before you're an Astros fan, you're the church. Before you're a CrossFitter, you're the church. More important than any other way that you identify yourself, my dream for you, and I believe God's dream for you as well, is that first and foremost, you identify as the church, as Christ's representative in the world, as God's followers, as God's children. You are the church. And I have this dream that people would stop giving money to the church because, again, they will start to see themselves as the church. And so when they give money away to the work of God in the world, then the church is giving. So you know how we all get frustrated when churches they misuse money. Churches, we should all agree, right, should be very generous with their money, and they should use their money correctly and all that stuff. And so we all think that the churches should be more generous. Do you know how we can make that happen? It happens by you being more generous to anyone and everyone around you, to anyone and everyone that you see. It happens by you being more generous. So the way our church is more generous, the way any church is more generous, the way the church of God is more generous is by the people of God living generously for others. And see, the church, I believe, has got to become more generous. Not just our church, the church, every church has to become more generous. That has to be a part of our very DNA. We've got to figure out a way that we can spend less on ourselves and we can give more to the work of God in the world. We've got to figure out how, as the richest nation in the world, the richest people in all of history, we've got to figure out how to buy less stuff for our ridiculously rich selves and how to give more ridiculous amounts of money away to those people who are in need. We need to be giving away more money and stop living for our own American dream so that we can start living for God's dream for the world. Now, I really think that, we don't need half the stuff that we normally buy. We can live on less so that we can be more generous to everyone we see. We can spend less so that we can give more, so that we can accomplish more good for other people, so we can accomplish more of God's dream in this world. And, because I'm a church guy, I'm a pastor, I have these kinds of churchy dreams, okay? It's my dream of helping to lead a church that starts to believe this way and live this way. And, I have this dream of seeing this church and other churches as well become a movement. I want to teach people about that kind of church. There are a lot of churches out there that don't really care at all about the stuff that I've been talking about today. A lot of churches are preoccupied with attendance and buildings and cash. Those are the ABCs of church. Attendance, buildings, and cash. Sometimes they're also called the 3 Bs, which I also like. Buildings, budgets, and butts and seats. That's what a lot of churches care about. That's not the church I ever have envisioned for us. If we build a church to just a massive production where thousands and thousands of people are coming in, we have millions and millions of dollars in our budget, we have really fancy buildings, I will not be satisfied. I will be the first one to quit and to leave. Now, believe me, it's tough when barely anyone shows up too, right? I'm not saying I don't want anybody to come to church on Sundays. It breaks my heart when people don't show up. And I know when people are gone and missing. So that doesn't satisfy me either. But I just don't believe that the measure of a successful church is the ABCs or the 3 Bs. I'm dreaming of something much bigger and much better than that. I'm dreaming of a people who get excited about this idea that church isn't just some place or event that we go to for an hour, but it's our identity. It's who we are. It's who you are. And as you leave from this place on a Sunday, you're going home and you're still thinking about being the church, and you're bringing the church into your neighborhood, and you're bringing the church into your community. You're bringing the church into your place of business. You're bringing the church into your gym. You're bringing the church everywhere that you can possibly think. The grocery store, your kids' schools, you are bringing the church with you there. I have this dream that people will stop going to church and start being the church everywhere they go. Now, your dream is probably different than mine. Most of you probably don't dream about starting new churches or anything like that. Most of you probably don't have like all these documents and plans lined out in spreadsheets on your computer like I have, or books and books about church planting on your personal library of your bookshelves and at home. I get that most of you don't eat, breathe, and sleep church. You're more likely to sleep in church. I understand that. Most of you have never probably fallen asleep and had an actual dream about church. Whereas I know lots and lots of pastors and worship leaders that have the classic pastor or worship leader nightmare, where you're dreaming about coming to church and none of your notes are working properly, and your guitar won't tune, and you can't read anything, and hardly anybody's there, or possibly everybody's there, and you're completely unprepared. And by the way, you showed up in your underwear or something like that. We've all had those dreams before. I actually remember an honest-to-goodness nightmare that I had, where I was preaching in front of a room full of people. I was preaching. I could not, I had notes, but they didn't make any sense. It's like, your eyes are trying to read the notes, and it's like you can't read what's in front of you. And I remember just going on and on and on and on, and I could not. I had no idea what I was talking about. I was just going on and on. Some of you think that's what's going on right now. It's just going on and on. And by the end, people just were like standing up and leaving. Like people were just leaving as I was preaching this message. And then there were like 2 people left in the congregation. And I finally was just still said, I'm sorry, guys. Just go home. I'll try better next week. And so we just ended the service right then and there, just like that. And that was an honest-to-goodness nightmare that I had. I'm pretty sure none of you have had a bad dream like that ever. And if you did, it wouldn't even feel like a nightmare. But you do have dreams. I know that you have dreams. And they may not be the same dreams that I have about church, but I know that they're dreams as the church. Your dreams may not be dreams about the church, but they are dreams as the church. And see, that is the thing that we need to know, that you are the church. That's my dream, that you would understand. That's the thing I've been trying to teach everyone for 4.5 years, that you are the church and you have dreams. And I believe that your dreams as the church are the church's dreams. They are connected. So your dreams as the church help to accomplish God's dream for the world. But we've got to start dreaming bigger and thinking about what God is really calling us to do in life, what God really wants for us. What is His dream for us? Because His dream, I believe, is for you to be the church everywhere that you go. So now that you know that God's dream for His church and my dream for this church, my challenge is just for you to think about, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to be a part of God's dream for this place? And will you be a part of His plans and His purpose and His vision, His dream for this world? If you are a part of God's church, then you're already a part of His dream. The only question is, will you actually live like you're a part of it? It's been said that the local church is the hope for the world. Are you living your life as hope for the world? Or are you just going to church? Stop going through life with no dream for yourself. Stop. You need to be a part of something bigger that God is doing through you. A part of what God is doing to recreate this whole world. So stop just going through life without a plan. Stop going through life without a purpose. Stop going through life without being the church. So this week, let's start dreaming of that better world that God has been making a reality through us. And let's join with him on this dream to make it a reality for our world. Let's serve our cities. Let's bless our neighbors. Let's be the church everywhere we go. Let me pray for you today. Heavenly Father, thank you for never giving up on us. Thank you for this beautiful world. Thank you for this beautiful life that you've given us and the promise to make it even better, to even make it more beautiful in the end. God, and thank you so much for the Lord's Supper, for this gift that we have, that we get to participate as the church as we receive this gift. Thank you for this gift as a symbol of your love, a symbol of your grace and forgiveness, a symbol of your presence here with us, where it helps to remind us that your Spirit is here with us to help us accomplish your dream for this world. That it's not just on our shoulders, but God, you are here with us. And you want to be with us every step that we take in life. Thank you for that reminder through this meal. God, we pray that your Spirit would come and join us at this meal, that your Spirit would fill this bread and juice so that as we eat it, we wouldn't just be filled with bread that's dipped in juice, God. We would be filled with the very Spirit of God, the powerful Spirit of God, the Spirit of God that is present with us, the Spirit of God that is working in us and through us to make your dream for this world a reality. So God, come and join us at this meal. Holy Spirit, come. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.